All right. How's it going, everybody? Greg and Paul are here to catch up and talk about a couple things we have going on right now. First off, if you guys have any questions at all, fire them into the Facebook chat and we'll take them. So any questions you have, we'll answer them on the fly here if we can. Second update would be that we raised $50,000 last week for charity at the golf outing. So I want to just send one more thank you to all of the sponsors and the agents that played. Agents that just donated their money. That was really awesome. I know a lot of people just bought those luncheon hang tickets, things like that. So thank you, everybody. We were able to raise quite a bit of money there for the Covenant Ability Network of Michigan.
For developmentally disabled adults.
Yep. So thank you for that. Okay, so we're talking today, Dad, Greg. We have EMD disputes coming out of our ears right now. Yep. And there's been this common phrasing that I've used, you used, we've all used it. You're writing up an offer, your buyer says, hey, just want to verify that EMD, that's refundable, right? And you go, yeah, it's refundable as long as you terminate during the inspection period for inspection purposes or whatever it might be. We represent to our clients all the time that this is a refundable earnest money deposit. Well, right now, in a world where things have become contentious, we have people being punitive, we're seeing more and more people disputing who gets the EMD back and when and how. So it might be super straightforward. You might think, oh, great, we're going to terminate here based upon inspections. So you send over mutual release. Seller doesn't think that you are having a good enough reason to terminate. Seller thinks maybe you just got cold feet, and seller refuses to sign the mutual release. Now what happens, Greg?
Well, the important thing that we want to try to break this down a little bit, all of its components. And so the first thing we want to do is we don't want five-star agents to be yelling and screaming at the other agent whose client, maybe the seller in this case, is refusing to sign. Remember, we can't make your buyers and sellers sign anything ever. And so just know that the other agent is not necessarily against what you're saying, but they do represent that party. And so they're probably not going to, sit there and agree with you and say, you're absolutely right. You should get the money back. The bottom line is if their client is refusing for whatever reason, there's nothing that you can do, that we can do as a broker. There's nothing you can make the other broker do, and you can't make the other agent do anything. So rather than being frustrated at all the wrong people, the key party is the seller who won't sign off on a mutual release. And so anyway, so these sales falling through deals, they seem to be rising right now. And then, I think the other thing that we've got to talk about is how we explain this to our buyers and our sellers will make a difference when it actually happens. And so to tell a buyer that they're just automatically going to get their money back is not a true statement. No. If you say those words, you just put yourself in the position to take the hits from your client that somehow you have the ability to get that money back. As a broker, if there's a dispute and we write what's called, if the seller will not release the funds with a mutual release, we then send, is it a 15-day letter or a 10-day letter?
Depends on the market. So some days there's some markets are 15 days, some are like 20, some are 30. So every association has kind of their own protocol.
If the seller does not respond when we send that out, if we don't get anything back within 15 days, or depending on the market, it could be less, we then can release that check back to your buyer. But in the cases where the seller writes back and declines that offer to release, we don't have a choice. We can't release it. It doesn't matter if your buyer is right, that they terminated within 10 days due to inspections or a declined mortgage. It doesn't matter. If we get that decline letter back from the seller, we're stuck. We become what's called a neutral third party, where we don't really technically represent the buyer or the seller, we represent the money. And so we have to be very careful how we proceed from here. And there's no reason for us to take on the liability of one of these things by releasing the money out inappropriately.
This dispute right here was not as common 10 years ago. It seemed like it was a little bit more straightforward, but for some reason, we have multiples happening right now. Just this morning, we're watching another one happen, and it's happening more and more.
Yeah.
So how do you?
Let me just go through the legal process here. Next step. So the buyer terminates. They use an addendum first that says they terminate due to the inspection clause, or they terminate due to a mortgage denial, or anything else that's in the contract that legally they can terminate for. Then they send out the mutual release separately, and technically you should do it in that order. And then nothing happens. So then we send out the 15-day letter. Nothing happens. In the meantime, your buyer wants to buy another house. He wants their money back. And we can't just hand them their money back. We can't transfer it from that transaction to the next one that they want to buy. That money is there for that specific deal. We can't release it. Mm-hmm. Then we go to what they call the final step. Sometimes we get threatened by somebody that they're going to get an attorney and they're going to sue us for their money. Well, the state has set something up called interpleader, which allows us to turn this money over to the courts. And if we do that, everybody has to get an attorney, the buyer, the seller, the other broker, us. And how this works is that the loser pays everything. The loser pays for everybody's attorneys. So really, when you get down to this point, we have actually never turned anything over to interpleader. But I'll tell you what, as this is going on, we're getting closer and closer to making that decision. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is take ownership of this and somehow take responsibility that it's our problem. We think that this can be headed off with a little more discussion up front by you with your buyers and by you with your sellers, both sides. And we can have a lot less contentious situations. And you know what? Sometimes there's just, you're not going to get the money. I mean, if they got a denial letter from the mortgage company, you can claim all sorts of things that they did here, but they got a denial letter. That's pretty hard to get around.
So just for fun here, when we see these denial letters coming over, the first thing you see from the seller is like, well, did they go buy anything? Did they buy a car? Did they go spend money? Did they open up a credit card account? Like, they want details, right? Because I thought they were pre-approved. How'd they get denied?
Well, I hope everybody understands that a pre-approval is about as good as a piece of Kleenex. So right. It's something, but I was talking with another 5-star agent, a longtime pro this morning about this. And his take is that, that agents are not very thorough in vetting both the mortgage company, who the buyer is, making sure that all the cash is where it's supposed to be, proof of funds. It feels like there's about 100 different ways for a deal to go down from my perspective as a broker. And it's like, there's always a twist. There's always a little, but what about this? And the bottom line is that, you know what, if the deal's going to go south, isn't it best to just get it over, move on, resell it, and not waste all that negative energy trying to make something happen that you have absolutely zero power to make happen?
Well, I completely agree, and I think that you're right. But let's just, without naming any sort of names or addresses, we have one right now where a deal fell through because of a denial from the bank. You have the seller who is not represented by Five Star. The seller said, I don't believe that reason. I'm calling fake news on that denial letter. And I'm not going to release the EMD. I'm not signing off on the mutual release. I'm not signing anything, right? So that seller since sold the home 3 weeks ago. We've not heard anything from the seller about pursuing the money other than they said they're not willing to release it, right?
Yeah.
So the problem with this process is there seems to be the seller has all of the power.
Yeah.
To say, no, I'm going to punish you. I'm not going to release that. That's going to sit there for as long as you and I are living. That's going to sit there unless you take me to court. That seems like an unfair or sort of like interesting power struggle here. So how do we advise this buyer who's pulling their hair out, Greg? We've done all the steps you just described. We've done the 15-day letter. We've done everything. We're now it's been weeks and weeks and weeks since this deal fell apart. They've already resold the home, and this person's already moved. They're gone.
Right.
So now what?
So, as I think about, as I think back to my selling days, and even if I were selling today, working with buyers, I think what I would be doing is I would be advising the buyers to only turn the money over once the inspections are done. So if there was some way I could write into a clause into the buy sell that says buyer will put down a $5,000 earnest deposit or $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever it's going to be, but I would say no later than, and I would probably pick 10 days out. And therefore, if I got to that point and I had my 10 days for my inspections, and we decide that we want to walk because of what we have found in the inspection report, well, guess what? I've never given the real estate company the money. Mm-hmm. So I don't have anything to hold. And all we send now is we send over the termination, and I don't think I'm required to collect the money when there's a dispute like that. So even if the seller,
these are questions we're asking attorneys right now.
So even if the seller, or where was I going with this?
Well, you were basically saying you could write a clause in hypothetically that says, EMD will be turned over once inspection period is satisfactory, or something like that, right? So that way, if you walk into the house and there's a swimming pool in the basement that's not supposed to be there because it rained heavy last night, you could be like, done, terminate, and you don't have to have this next 3-month argument over an EMD.
Right. So, I mean, I would try to set the thing up. Now, again, granted, I'm sure everybody's sitting there right now going, yeah, how are you going to do that in this market?
When, there's 25 other offers that are, waiving everything.
Are they going to use that against my buyers? Well, I'll tell you what, the key to so many of these things in life is that have you been smart enough? Have you been wise enough? Are you studied enough to understand this in a way that you explain this properly to the buyers up front and say, look, here's where we're at. I can tell you to do this, but if I do this, it could be used against you, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, so if you choose to do this, you understand that number one, if you go ahead and do it, your 5,000 or your 1,000 or your 10,000, we may not be able to get back right away. And what I haven't mentioned yet is one of the remedies in here. The simplest remedy for a buyer to get their money back, or for a seller who truly feels wronged, it's like $150 or $200, and you go to small claims, and within 30 days, I think you got a case. You go in front of the judge, and it's done deal. We get the judgment. They tell us, okay, the judge says release the money. We release the money, and we're done. Mm-hmm. And but you know what? Very few people want to go to small claims. They just want their agent to get the flipping money back to them, and you have it, and they want it, but you didn't explain it up front that this could happen. You didn't take the time.
The dreadful words. I thought you told me this was refundable.
Yes. And you should have put a caveat on the end of that. Once we get a mutual release signed by the seller could reject it, the seller could decline, and now we got this battle. And so this could also give you, you go, well, shoot, well, I'm never going to put a $10,000 deposit down then, because I don't want to end up, does it, like, if the more you put down, does it make the seller drool a little bit more? They're going to get this hands on the money. The same thing goes for you as an agent of the listing. When I used to get offers, I would tell the seller, look, we can fight over this if you want, but typically when we get a mutual release, I think the best thing to do is just to let it go, move on, get the house back on the market. Buyers are out there. There are other times in the industry when it's not quite as easy, but so I try to educate both on the seller side and on the buyer side, so that when these things happen, my clients have been prepared to understand what's going on. And, these sellers who want to fight, 99.9% of the time, they're never, ever going to get that money. I mean, buyer could be just totally a jerk and off base. You're still going to have a difficult time getting that money. And so I would encourage you to explain better up front. And by the way, the other thing I heard from this experienced agent I talked to today, was the lenders are not doing a very good job. And I mean, I've heard about good lenders, and I know there's good lenders out there, but it sounds like the majority have not done the legwork, especially on a pre-approval. But even beyond that, so if you aren't your own advocate and you put too much trust in the lender to do all the vetting here in the beginning, you could end up with a bad deal. And again, really what this is all about is none of us want our clients to think that we didn't do our work, we didn't do our homework, we didn't properly protect them. And that's ultimately what this looks like in the end, is that you're feeling guilty. The buyer's looking to you now that you're the bad guy because you took their check, and you want to set this thing up so that you are never, ever in the line of fire. And
so Nick Sparks asked a question. He said, how often are you guys finding that a seller does not want to release the EMD? So I can approach this question from a couple angles. From a brokerage perspective, the actual disputes we're running into, we have probably enough to count on two hands right now that are people really truly fighting over this EMD, which is honestly a lot compared to what it used to be. But I will tell you that from a listing agent perspective, and Greg could probably talk about this too, from years and years and years of selling real estate, when I have a client, I've got a seller, Greg is a seller, back in the day, it was, they start talking like they want to fight this EMD. And honestly, I would just tell them, hey guys, this contract right here stated that they have the ability to terminate this transaction based upon inspections, which is what they're doing right now. So there is really no chance you're gonna get your hand on this money. And I basically just tell my sellers right up front, like this is a feeble exercise. And I'm just honest with the seller, saying there's really no way I'm gonna get you that. Now, if someone does breach the contract, a buyer does breach the contract, and I can show they breached the contract, at that point, even getting the full EMD is going to be difficult. You have to call the other broker. They might be able to talk to you about it. You might be able to work through it. It tends to be some kind of a negotiation. You might sometimes get all of it. I have gotten all of it from my sellers, but I guess I want to approach it from two ways. One, from a brokerage level, not a ton, but we have a bunch we're dealing with. And from a listing agent perspective, I usually just talk to my sellers right out of it, because it was going to be fruitless anyways. Greg, what do you think?
Well, another area that was good, but another area is we find many of these EMD disputes, the money has not been collected and it's not been put in the broker's trust account. And so, if you're on the seller side, if it were me, I would be looking for proof that money has been handed over. If they failed to abide by the contract, you know, the question is, can you now terminate the contract? And I would say probably
And really quickly,
yes.
when they send you a photo of a check, that check could still be sitting on the seller's or the buyer's kitchen table. That check
Right.
does not mean that it's left the buyer's kitchen table and went into the broker's escrow account or earnest money account.
Right.
So, you know, there's a difference there, because a lot of times people are just like, here's a picture of a check. It's not been deposited.
Yeah.
It's just a picture of a check.
Another thing that's taking place is that if you're on the buy side, and you know, you told your buyer to, hey, send the check in, whatever, you don't ever verify it, you just move on, you go your other stuff. Well, there's no way for the company to monitor and to get back to an agent and say, oh, by the way, your client has not turned in the earnest money. But it's up to you to verify that this money has come in. If you were not in line, you know, if they haven't used like an online deal like Earnest, or they haven't handed you the check, I would say you need to verify. And matter of fact, further, we've had checks bounce and it's never been replaced. And I mean, it's been us. I mean, on our side, one of our agents never verified it, the check bounced, and then the deal falls. Well, guess who they want to hold accountable now for that earnest money? Because in effect, you led the seller's agent, the other broker, believed that you had the money and you did not turn yourself in for not receiving the money. In effect, with earnest money disputes, they will find against the buyer's agent because you had an affirmative obligation to notify the listing broker if your buyer fails to turn the deposit in. So, I mean, we're just talking about EMDs here today. We're not, the rest of it's like this, it's a large, wild, vast group of legal things that each of the agents need to know today. It's far more complicated today than it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And it's up to you guys to educate yourself in this area. And if you're educated, you're probably going to have less of these issues. If you float along and you don't take it seriously, you don't study it, you don't ask questions, you're probably going to find yourself in one of these battles. And I'll tell you what, the last thing, ultimately, none of us want to lose a client. And I will tell you that agents are losing clients on a regular basis over EMD disputes, whether you lose the deal that you're involved in now, or you lose their faith and support to give you referrals going into the future. I mean, why would you work this hard and lose that ability to have that referral network built out from this satisfied client? Take the time, explain the process, make sure from both the buy side and the sell side that your clients are educated on EMDs, and that, again, they can direct you to go against what we're recommending, but at least you've had that discussion. Paul, anything else you want to add before we go off into this other area here for the last few minutes?
Nope. I think just being clear and explaining how EMDs work to your clients right off the bat is going to be important.
So, where I want to go next here, and maybe we can come back and discuss this at length if there's enough questions in this area, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure we've set up at 5-Star to support agents. And we think we've set this thing up well, and you can be the judge of that here. But the first person that each of you should know about is your branch administrator. We call them BAs, and there's 5 of them in the company, and they are there to support agents, whether it be things like .loop, things like associations,
or directing you to any or directing you to anyone else in the company that you might need to talk to. Like, hey, who do I talk to about accounting questions, or who do I talk to about, growing my business? They'll be able to connect you from there.
So that's the BA first. The second thing that we've got are what we call broker support. And right now we have 3 of them. We've got Kim Anderson, Tracy Johnson, and Doug Hale in Muskegon. And we have a 4th who will probably be coming back in 30 days or so. Their job, in my humble opinion, is to be there and help you before the offer is written. So,
whoa, they're there for quite a few things too.
well, but first I wanted to say, I think that they're primarily there to help you avoid the issues beforehand, although they will do deal doctoring after.
Well, not only that, but they're there to coach you, to do some coaching type stuff. They're there to talk to you about ways to build your business, ways to connect with your sphere,
Right.
all sorts of stuff. So the way I kind of see it is you have them, they're kind of front lines with you. They're actually selling realtors as well. So they're active in the industry. And then sorry, I've got my nephew, Gregory. Come on in, Greg.
So while you're going there, Paul, the next layer is what we call deal doctors. And in deal doctors, Don Phelan, as well as Eric Graham, and they are the guys that are what I call like the fixers, right? I mean, when you got a problem, you're going to reach out to them. But again, just know it's interchangeable a little bit. The deal doctors can do some of the preliminary work before the deal. And likewise, the broker support can cover some things after the fact as well. But as we look at it, we set up broker support. They are like mentors, coaches, counselors, and they're there to take some of the weight and the burden off of the deal doctors. And then, of course, beyond the deal doctors, you've got Paul that's there to support. Over on the Star Title side, we've got Phil that you can reach out to for any title issues. And then eventually you've got me if you can't reach any of these others. But think about this. So when you talk about support, and we talk, our goal has been, how do we build the most supportive system, real estate system on the planet? We think we've done it through this concept of the BAs, then the broker support, the the deal doctors, and then Paul, and then Phil, and then Greg. And through that, there should never be a day that you can't reach one of us and find yourself alone without anybody there. And again, besides those people, there's another 25 people working in 5-star, and there's another 30.
I just shared a link that has a list of all the staff there, Greg, with their emails and phone numbers. So I just shared it to the video. Anyways, it's at 5starmichigan.com, and you just click the About Us link, and you'll see everybody we're describing right there.
So again, we'll get phone calls periodically, and somebody will say, well, I don't know who my BA is. Well, that shouldn't happen. First off, you should know who your BA is. If you don't know who your BA is right now, please contact who, Paul?
Well, you can call the 1-800 number and someone will answer. But you'd reach out to me, you'd reach out to anyone on the team. Anyone you can reach out to on the team can direct you to the right person. So everybody's been kind of cross-trained on how to get you to the right area. It's kind of a lot to wrap your head around in terms of just, there's a lot of things. It's like, I kind of look at it like going to college. When you have orientation, you have an RA, and your RA and your dorms is supposed to be the one that connecting you initially to all the places and things you can go and do and see, and all the people you might need to know. So we're all here to help. So any one of us can help you get connected to the right people.
So what we've done here is we tried to build this centralized system where, like Tracy Johnson, who goes between Detroit and the Manistee area, she can answer questions on most real estate transactions from Kalamazoo to the UP. And sometimes there's specifics in contracts that they don't necessarily use on a daily basis, but they can figure it out. And So like Doug Hale is located along the lakeshore, but Doug can handle questions in Alma, Cadillac, Jackson. So the idea here was that we had these three broker support people that can move all over the state. So if you can't reach one, so if you think that you consider one of these people to be your person and you can't reach them, you've got 4 to 6 other people that you can call to get support at any time. So when we hear that somebody says they weren't able to reach anybody, it's like, we're probably gonna, we might challenge you a touch on that, because we know that there's going to be somebody available. And if nothing else, you can call the 1-800 number or the main office 791-1500, area code 616, and they're going to be able to direct you. The VAs, as an example, when a phone rings, it rings in all 5 VAs. And so if one doesn't pick it up because they're busy, somebody else is going to get it. So,
and that's why when you call like an office like Kalamazoo or wherever, you might get Diane over in Muskegon answering the phone, because that agent or that staff member was currently on the phone or was currently helping someone at the office or something like that, and so it rings another desk.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead, Paul.
I think we can probably wrap it. I think we've given them the information they need to try and to get familiar with the staff here at the company and how to get help. We talked about EMD, so I think we hit the target here.
Well, I hope so. And so if you have an EMD question, you know what? Any one of the staff that we just mentioned can help you. And the key is taking a few minutes when you're receiving an offer or when you're writing an offer, explain this process, that it's not as simple as just, I want my check back. That probably isn't going to happen. And even if if you want it back today, it's not going to happen. I mean, you can see the process. Even if everything's perfect, you still get you got to get the addendum out, the mutual release out. It gets to the brokers, then they cut the check, they send it back, could be by mail. So whatever circumstances you find yourself in, it's not going to be an overnight fix to get that check back.
Yep.
So,
all right. Well,
hey, thanks everyone.
Yep. Thanks everybody. Have a great week. We'll talk to you later.